Yeah, the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Speaking of credit, we had him on a couple months ago for the first time. He knocked it out of the park, and now everybody in Bristol, they're on to our guy, Dan Orlovsky, who's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Congratulations on the gig, man. That's awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
I knew you were going there, though. You were such a big hit around here. I mean, really, and without even trying. I mean, you just being you. I was shocked. I would have been shocked had somebody not latched on to your services this year, certainly. So, again, congratulations.
Thank you. It's exciting. So I'm looking forward to kind of diving in and going with it for sure.
What is going to be more of your go-to category, college football or the NFL?
I think it's going to be a unique mix of both. Probably when it comes to doing like studio work, it'll be more NFL because I'll be doing NFL Live and Get Up and a little bit of calling some games on ESPN radio for NFL. And then I'm just going to be calling college football games. So I'm going to do a little bit of both, really kind of spread my wings, kind of put my fingerprint all over the place and see, if I fall in love with something, fall out of love with something, but it'll be a unique blend of both, but probably lean a little bit more towards the NFL.
Yeah, and certainly around here, camp gets underway for the Colts coming up next week, and there are a variety of questions that are floating around, one of which that I've asked, and I Dan, maintain that we haven't seen luck in over a year, and it's still going to take a little bit. And I say that if the Colts go 8-8 next year, that is a really good season. And I get a little bit of pushback around here from people suggesting that if Luck plays 16 games, if he plays in all 16, they should be better than 8-8, and that'll be disappointing. What say you?
I would probably agree with the people. I think that when Andrew Luck is healthy and on the field for all 16 games, there's no reason to think that they wouldn't be better than 8 wins. He's proven that. I also look at their schedule and go, well, you're going to play Tennessee twice, so what are they with the new head coach? Are they better? Are they worse? You play the Giants, you play the Cowboys, you play the Dolphins, the Bills, the Raiders, the Bengals. I don't think any of those teams are going to blow you away in fear or whatnot. So I would say this, that Andrew is such a impactful and generational player that him being healthy is worth 8 wins alone. And then the fact that it's a much improved team, especially up front, I think adds on another 2 or 3 wins. So I would be surprised if Luck's healthy and plays all 16 that they're not somewhere still in the playoff hunt.
This is Dan Orlovsky, now of ESPN. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. How long do you expect him to get into gear? Let's just say, for the sake of our discussion right here, he does play in all 16, starts the season, as he said that he is going to do, and there's no knocking on wood. I mean, he's put that out there. That's the expectation now. How long would you think it would take him to get into gear after not playing for more than a year?
I think it'll take, the whole month of September. Training camp will play its part, and he'll have some preseason games, and they're certainly going to be probably ultra cautious with him, and I'm sure Andrew's going to go, I need to take some hits. I think that when you step away from a game of football that is about contact for as long as he has, it's going to have its effects on you naturally. And at that position, some of the biggest things that you cannot emulate, you just cannot replicate these things in a practice, are your eyes. And what I mean by that is bodies moving. It's not necessarily eye discipline when people go, okay, he's staring at receivers, but just literally getting to the line of scrimmage and having to go from being 6'4" down to 6 feet when you get underneath the center and taking snap. It's different. It's a big difference. And so bodies moving at certain speeds will be something that I think is just going to take time for him. The feel of a pocket and can I get away from this or not? It's just going to get back. It's going to take some time for him to get back into that rhythm. So I think he needs to go through a couple games where things are full speed for 3 hours and his eyes are getting adjusted to that. His feel of his body getting bumped in the pocket is going to take some time. And then I just think he's going to need to take some shots. I think he's going to need to fall on that shoulder a couple times, feel like we're confident in it. And it's almost like once all those things happen and he gets all those reps, it's going to be like taking, you ever watch a kid when he trains with one of those parachutes on his back and
Sure.
They pull the parachute off and he gets shot out. I think that's what it's going to be like. I think he's going to have a parachute on for his first month, And once that comfort comes back, he's going to get shot out of a cannon.
So Dan Orlovsky, he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. How do you expect maybe a change philosophically, offensively now, and a new head coach and some new stuff that's not going to put him in down the field, 25, 35 yards, having to wait for receivers to come open, is not going to put as much pressure on him and that offensive line to hold their blocks as long as what we have seen with Chuck Pagano and other offensive coordinators of the past, Dan?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing you'll see is, one, they'll spread the field a little bit more. They'll get people out of the box with some of the guys that they have, mainly those two tight ends that I've talked about, Doyle and Ebron, kind of utilizing them in matchups. T.Y. obviously being such a vertical threat, I think highly of Ryan Grant. So I think they'll spread defenses out a little bit more. I do think that they're going to incorporate more RPO stuff. And I'm not saying that because it's the low-hanging fruit. I'm saying it because you have a guy – listen, not everyone can run RPOs. You have to have a quarterback that has the ability to go through some sleight of hand and athletic enough, or at least a decent enough athlete to pull some of those unique throws off, because sometimes you're throwing the ball and your feet aren't even set, or they're pointing one way, throwing it the other way. So he's good enough to pull that stuff off. And also those RPOs are unique in a way where you don't ask your offensive line to hold up, obviously, because they're running run game stuff. And Andrew can kind of toy with defenses. He can hand it if he wants, depending on numbers or where guys flow, or he can get the ball out of his hands for some easy completions, especially early on when defenses don't know, are you going to run or are you going to pass? And that'll keep them in much more efficient and manageable third downs. They have the personnel to do it as well. You can't just do it and cross your fingers. So I think that's the biggest thing, is they'll really work on getting the ball out of his hands on specific matchups, using some, I guess if you want to call them RPO type situations where he's got stuff going on multiple times per play.
It's Dan Orlovsky joining us, and you talk about the run-pass option, and a little bit about Eric Ebron, and people all the time, even like me, say, boy, I'm kind of uncertain about the wide receiver position. You brought up Ryan Grant, who nobody has seen around here, and Eric Ebron, who nobody has seen playing a Colts uniform yet. Why do you like both going into 2018?
Well, I think Grant was really productive when giving minimal opportunities. I mean, he was behind Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson in Washington when they were playing at a really high level, and then he was behind Jordan Reed and Doxson in Washington. And so those guys were giving and afforded more opportunities. Ryan Grant was efficient when he had the ball thrown his way. I also know that the coaches that came from Washington that I had my time with, Sean McVay, thought really highly of Ryan Grant, or Sean McVay thought very highly of Ryan Grant as well. Ebron is a guy that, and I've said this, he's going to afford some matchup opportunities for the Colts, and that's going to be really good for them, not only for that exact matchup, but also some information stuff for Andrew before the snap, whether it's a man or zone read. There's not a lot of linebackers that can just athletically match up with Eric in the NFL. Eric is still very young. If Eric will continue to make the commitment, and this sounds simple, but make the commitment to catching the football. There's going to be some drops. That's his I guess his nemesis. But if he can make the commitment to continue to work on that and minimize them, he is going to be a very, very big weapon because of that. I also think a guy that, I loved coming out, and I was surprised that he wasn't taken earlier type thing, was Deion Kane out of Clemson.
Yeah.
I remember watching Clemson and being like, this dude's the next Mike Williams coming out of there, who was the first rounder out of to L.A. 2 years ago. His size is fantastic. 14 touchdowns last year, only like 50-something catches. So you go, wait, this dude produces in the red zone. So I think that he's got an opportunity to be very impactful because, again, going to utilizing those tight ends, if you're going to get him matched up against a fourth corner type thing or a third or fourth corner in the NFL, he's going to have an instant size and instant speed advantage. And I think he displays ball skills, especially down the red zone, to maximize those things. So I think they're in a good place with the people that are going to be around Andrew Luck.
And the other part of it is with Kane and with Ebron in this case, where they're similar, is that they both have heard a lot of negativity surrounding their game. And we'll start with Ebron here. I mean, you know of him obviously in Detroit. If there's a guy that ever should be motivated by what people say he can't do, and he's talked about this as well, it should be Ebron in 2018 here.
Absolutely. I think that the unique thing about Eric is the want to and the will, the work ethic is there. It's there. And, part of the downside of him is he was so young coming into the NFL. And so much was expected of him. And when you're young and all that burden gets placed on you, it's difficult. And I think he fell victim to that a little bit and tried to become somebody that he thought he should be. I believe that him moving on, having another organization believe in him, having a system that's going to allow him to be at his strengths, because he is basically a glorified receiver. And so use him in that way. Don't make him be somebody he's not. Don't ask him to block, play side on inside run. That's not who he is. And so I believe that Frank's going to have a really good feel for placing him in positions to be successful. And, utilizing that motivation, whatever it takes and whatever it is. Maybe it's motivation from how did Detroit not pick up my option or keep me and whatnot, or why did they give up on me, or all these people think that I can't play or whatnot. I like the kid. I believe in him. I believe in his work ethic and his want to. It's just, you have to wait to see if it finally all comes together when he becomes that dominant player. He's shown flashes of it, and that's the encouraging part. You just hope it all comes together at once.
He is former Colts quarterback, former NFL quarterback, and now he's got a gig with ESPN, and we like him a great deal. Dan Orlovsky's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I want to get to the rest of the AFC South. Are you a believer? We'll start here because they went out, spent a lot of money, and they're going for broke. There's no doubt about it this year. Are you a believer in Blake Bortles and the Jaguars being able to take that next step in the AFC?
I'm not a believer in Blake Bortles. No, I don't think that he's shown enough consistently. Well, first of all, when you have the lack of mechanics that Blake does, you're always going to be on a roller coaster ride as a quarterback. That's just because the ball is shaped in a unique way where his unnatural throwing motion is going to cause for some moments of unique success and some moments of unique failure because of the variety that he's going to throw at and the lack of consistency in it. I think that they did a really nice job near the end of the year, Nathaniel Hackett, their offensive coordinator, of getting him into favorable situations and utilizing some matchups. A big concern for me about them and their offense is if you look at their two starting receivers and starting tight end, they have the second least amount of catches in the NFL out of everybody behind the New York Jets. And so at some point that matters. At some point you have a very unproven guys in a division that can play some man-to-man. So offensively, I get very concerned about them. Now defensively, everyone knows they're going to be special on the defensive end, special. And so their defense is going to be Super Bowl caliber. I don't think that their offense will hold them back all that much, but I don't believe that their offense is going to be good enough or efficient enough to go to the Super Bowl, let's say.
What do you think about Houston? And we all expect Deshaun Watson to come back, and most believe him not to miss a beat. What about Watson at quarterback and what Houston has done in the offseason to try to make that squad better within the division?
Yeah, to say he's not going to miss a beat is silly. I mean, he's not. This is a guy coming off a torn ACL who doesn't sit in the pocket. His athleticism and his lateral agility and his quickness are his absolute strength, and so are one of his strengths. And so to say, he moves like a skill position guy. If that was a receiver or running back, we would say, okay, we've got to see how he comes back. He's the same guy. He's just a really good thrower of the football. So I am cautiously optimistic because I think he's great for the NFL. But I do think if we're going to say that it's going to take Andrew Luck a month or so to get back in the swing, it's going to take just as much, if not more, for Deshaun Watson because his injury is is more impactful to the special part of his game. The intriguing thing about Houston for me is they're coming off a season where they went through like 75 guys. That's like historically high number-wise for a roster. And so, health was a huge, huge part of their struggles. If they can stay healthy, this is the defense that was the worst in the NFL last year. In 2016 was the best, and now they have Romeo Crennel coming back as their play caller. So I think Houston's got a chance to be much improved, and it's going to hang on Crennel coming back and impacting that defense, those cats on the defensive end staying healthy, and then Deshaun Watson, does his knee hold up? That's an honest-to-God question that you have to ask for a guy that is going to be playing 10 or 11 months removed from a significant injury. You're hopeful, and I'm hopeful, but you just don't know.
You have more questions about Mariota or first-year head coach Mike Vrabel in Nashville this season?
I believe it's first-year head coach Mike Vrabel. I think, and I've been outspoken about this, I think Mariota's due for a huge, huge year. And it's all contingent off if Matt LaFleur can call plays, a new offensive coordinator, a guy that I've known for many years. He really understands football, and he knows X's and O's and knows how to attack defenses. He's bringing over that Gary Kubiak, Mike Shanahan offense that quarterbacks usually light it up in. That's what Jared Goff kind of took off with last year with Sean McVay. The reason I love the marriage scheme-wise is last year Mariota was the number one ranked play-action guy in the NFL. The absolute heartbeat of this new offense that he's in is play-action passes. So I think he's going to be in a huge comfort zone. If Matt LaFleur can call plays, their offense is going to be really, really, really good because they've got guys who can run it and block it, and they've got some vertical threat receivers. They went and got some nice pieces. Deion Lewis, a huge pickup. Vrabel, I hear phenomenal things about, and they've got some good pieces on the defensive end. You don't know until he's in the fire. I find it intriguing that Houston's defense went from first in the NFL to last in the NFL in 1 year under him. Now, I know injuries played a part of that, but you don't just get a free pass from it as well. So I think their offense is going to be better than people think, but with first-year head coaches, you just have to find out, especially a guy who's been relatively unproven at the coordinator spot.
So you think the AFC South is going to be as good as maybe we've ever seen it from top to bottom? And there are a lot of things, a lot of variables here, but you think that we could see that?
Absolutely. Well, because if you look at every team has either a standout, like superstar unit or superstar player. I mean, and that's very rare for divisions. If I think it's going to be very similar to the NFC South. The NFC South is going to be a dogfight, and no one can sit here and claim that their team is going to be the walkaway winner. And I think that's the case for the AFC South. It's not 3 or 4 years ago where the AFC South was kind of looked down upon in a way. The AFC South, there's not going to be many teams in the NFL that are going to go want to play any of those 4 teams at the end of the year, especially if they all stay healthy. So they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. And if Andrew Luck comes back and is who he was, or a shell of it, man, that's going to be a lot of fun to be kind of watching in on.
Dan Orlovsky from ESPN just got hired by ESPN's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. How do you view what's going on in Pittsburgh between the Steelers organization and Le'Veon Bell? Who ultimately is missing out most on them not coming together on a longer-term situational deal?
Oh, I think the Steelers are, and I don't even find it to be close. The Steelers are, first of all, we have to look at Le'Veon Bell as a player. This is a guy who's 4th in the history of their franchise in running the football and 8th in the history of their franchise catching the football. No one else in the NFL, history-wise, can say that. And by the end of the year, he'll be top 5 in both rushing and receiving. And this is for a franchise that is storied and a community that is incredibly loyal and incredibly faithful to their players and team. The fact that they didn't lock him up and maybe overpay him for the next 4 years is a travesty in my mind, because their window to win is shrinking. Their AB is not getting younger, and neither is their Hall of Fame quarterback. And so why would you not take advantage of that window? Everybody knows players over plays. And Le'Veon Bell is just is so rare with the things that he can do and the stuff that you're able to do with him offensively. I know I've read some people say, well, they don't want him to get to 30 years old, but you could have given him a 3 or 4 year deal and gotten him to 30 years old and then figured it out. But the window that they have is so unique that to have a guy that you drafted be as impactful and productive as he has been, and to essentially let him walk out the door is very, very confusing to me. And I don't understand how they weren't willing to overpay in a way, because that's what it was going to take, but overpay in a way for already one of the best players their franchise ever seen.
Now, in the AFC, the Raiders finished 6-10 a year ago. Obviously, John Gruden is now there. Derek Carr is coming back from injury. They going to be top-level good, or still scuffling a little bit in year number one with Gruden there? Again.
Well, I for all the good of John Gruden and all the success that he's had, I mean, he's very much so removed from the game, like people have talked about. So I think, is he going to be up to speed? Now, I love his hire of Gunther as defensive coordinator, because he's going to bring that Zimmer system over that is going to be really effective scheme-wise. I get super concerned with their defense. It's old. It's unproven. Rashawn Melvin is a guy that you guys know. Is he going to be a starting cornerback for you in the NFL and in a division that can throw it? Is Garyon Conley going to step forward and be a lockdown guy? I think so. They're a little bit older on the defensive end. That concerns me. I do like the pieces that they did on off. They brought in on offense. Jordy Nelson can still play. Cooper is going to come on strong. If Martavis Bryant can somewhat be a pro, he's an absolute threat, and obviously their offensive line is still really strong. So for me, it's just going to be, does John Gruden get up to speed with what's going on in the NFL and all the intricacies of handling practices and handling schedules and handling social media of his players and handling the different schemes that have been brought into the NFL in the last 10 years, and how the game is a little bit more open, and all the things that are going to come with that coaching decision-wise. That'll be the biggest question mark. I think it's going to take some time for him to get back into the swing of things. And we'll see. I'm not as high on the Raiders as many other people are.
Dan Orlovsky is new to ESPN. We've had him around here for a long time. I want to continue to do this if you don't mind. I'm very, very happy for you to take that next step, man. But people have absolutely been thrilled with your analyst work and breaking down the NFL the past couple of months here. And I really do appreciate it. And congratulations on that new gig.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I love coming on. You have some great questions. It's a very good conversation. So for me, it's anytime, man. I appreciate it.
Well, you'll be great on ESPN, and we'll track you down more than a couple of times this year. Dan, thank you very much.
I appreciate it, bud.